Welcome back to Excel 2016, Module 2. This is Part 6, and we will look at some of the formatting options for printing your workbook. You should be in your morning workbook. It should have a lot of formatting, including conditional formatting that has been done on your sales report. One thing that we did in the last one was we had two colors of conditional formatting and we had a legend on the top. What I want to do first is I want to cut this and I want to paste it into column K. And notice that when I do that, it does pull the conditional formatting with it when I choose to paste. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the page break preview. And I'm going to shrink this down quite a bit so that you can see the entire workbook on the screen. And you can see that as it is right now, you would have 6 pages, and 2 of them would be almost completely blank. A small piece of the legend would be on the bottom of each. That's all that you would see on those. So given that, I don't like the way the page breaks are happening. I also don't want all of that blank space to be included in my printout. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to change the print area. So when you define a print area, you're telling Excel, I do not want you to print all the area that has data in it. I only want you to print part of it. So what Excel does by default is it looks at the upper left-hand corner and the lower right-hand corner, and it makes that into a large rectangle, and everything in there prints. If you don't want something to print, you can define the print area. So let's go ahead and start out by enlarging this. And we'll make it to 80. All right, so we're going to start out. We're going to choose A1, and we're going to go all the way down to F24. We chose that range because in the other two sections, page 3 and 5, there is no text of any kind, so we don't want those. Next, we're going to hold the control key down because we have to select non-adjacent areas. We're going to select A25 and drag it over and then drag it down to select everything through P47. When we get that range selected, we're going to release the mouse and the control key. Next, you're going to go to the Page Layout tab, and you're going to find the Print Area option. We're going to choose that button and set the print area. So now notice it revised it, and it took that blank area out. I'm going to go down to 50% so you can see it a little bit better. And you can see that we have new arrangement there, and we now want to change some of these page breaks. We want to remove the automatic page breaks and insert our own. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this line, dotted line, which is a page break, so that we get the arrow, and then drag it off the report. Do the same thing with this solid blue line. Just drag it off the report. The next thing we want to do is we want to insert a page break. So you're going to select column I, and you're going to go to this page breaks and insert a page break. Then we're going to click on A1. So now we're down to 3 pages. The next thing we want to do is something called a print title. So what a print title will do is it allows you to repeat something either on the top of every page as far as rows, or you can also do columns to repeat on every page. So we're going to start out by choosing print titles. And in the rows to repeat at top, you're going to hover over the row numbers, and you're going to choose 1 and 2. You want to pay attention to the fact that it is not formatting it as a cell reference. It puts dollar signs in there. Okay, so you want to make sure you select these options with your mouse and not try to type them. The next thing we want to do are the columns to repeat at the left. We're going to go up to the top and highlight over columns A and B. And again, you'll notice it puts the dollar signs in there. Some of the other things that we can do is we can change the way the pages order when they print. We can add grid lines, which will, everywhere you see the screen on here, it will add it. And we'll talk more about those later. The next thing we are going to do is do a print preview. You can see page 1 has that top segment, page 2, and page 3. You'll notice that each page repeats rows 1 and 2, as well as columns A and B. The next thing we want to consider are headers and footers. Now there's a couple ways that you can do headers and footers. One option you have is to go to the page layout view and click up here to do them. When you do that, you get a header and footer tools design tab. Okay? My preference is to go to the normal view. Whoops, we have to click out of the header. And then on page layout, I like to choose the dialog box. When I open up the dialog box, I can go to the header and footer tab. This is my preference. I personally find this easier, but you can do it either way. So on the header and footer tab, we're going to click the box that says different first page. Click the custom header. And now what you want to do is you want to type as little as possible. You're going to type headings. But these buttons above here, you're going to use if you want to insert a piece of information. So for example, in a moment, we're going to insert the file name so that on the top of each report, it will give us this name of our worksheet. So if you look here, this button allows you to give the file name. This button allows you to print the path on your computer to show where the file is stored. This button allows you to print the sheet names that we have down here at the bottom. We can add pictures. We can add the time, a date, the total number of pages that are going to be printing, and the page number that is currently printing. And we have 3 sections that we can put these pieces of information in. You have the same pieces of information for the header and the footer. And notice, because we said the first page is different, you have, this is the header for every other page. This is what I want on the first page. Okay, so we're going to start out on the header tab, and we are going to say in the left section we want the name, we want it to say file name with a colon. We're going to add 2 space bars, and then we're going to add this button that says give me the file name. Okay, you could also type that code in there, that ampersand, and then file with square brackets around it, but you would have to remember exactly how to format that. So it is much easier to simply click the buttons and insert them that way. Now if we came over here into the right section, we can add the date. And if I wanted the time to be printed on the next line down, I would hit the Enter key, so it would take me to another line, and then add the time. Then I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to work on the footer. So I'm going to click on the custom footer. Notice the buttons are the same. You still have a footer for all the pages and a separate one for the first page. Alright, so on all the pages, we are going to click in the center section, and we are going to say the word page followed by a space, and then we're going to use the button that says I want to know the exact page number that this is, and then I'm going to add the text of a space, the word of, and another space, and I want the total number of pages that will be printed, so I'm going to put that in there. You always have to use these buttons, because if you typed page 1 of 3, then every single page would read page 1 of 3, even if there were 25 pages. Okay, so you always have to use the buttons so that it will provide the information that is needed that's specific to this workbook. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to identify what's different on the first page. So on the first page in the right section, we are going to type prepared by and your name, a space or 2 spaces and your name. So this you do have to type. There are no buttons that are going to tell it who prepared it, so you will have to type it. So sometimes you can't use the buttons. You do have to type things. It just depends on what you're trying to put in there. So then we're going to click OK. Now on this same dialog box, you'll notice there's a button for margins. Okay, so you can specify if you want it centered. You can also specify specific margins, where the header goes and where the footer goes. So we are going to change the left margin to 1.0. So we're just going to type a 1. That changes the left margin to 1 inch. I'm going to save my work. Now if I go to say File and Print, I get the print preview. Now right now it only shows me the 3 pages that are on the active sheet. If, however, I wanted to see all worksheets in the workbook, I could change that. And notice now I get the documentation sheet, the 3 pages from our current workbook, as well as that extra one that I created talking about some of the coloring issues. If I don't really want to print, I can go back. I do want to remind you, on campus you do have this option as well. You can always print to a PDF. And if I only wanted certain items to print, I could choose that. I could go back to just the active sheet and I would only have those 3. So we're going to go back and then we're going to save our work, and we have completed Module 2.